Live again at the command center of the JW Solar USA. We're working on these 18650 batteries with a built-in BMS from battery hookup. So I'm doing the soldering right now. If you can see, here goes the soldering iron. It's a high voltage, over 100 watt wattage, higher wattage. That's not the one I need for this because it's too hot. So the welding, they have, when you solder, you have different wattages for certain wires, or else you started melting them, they're gonna be really hot. So I gotta separate this wire away from the other one because live, and I already put a solder here, but I ran out of the solder. This is the one this is the one I'm currently using. I have to run to the store and get it right now before it's too late. All these wires are connected together so that they can able to still balance these two packs on the back and balance these other two packs. That's what I did for this, is stabilize the voltage. Okay, so I was using my heat shrink, but for some reason, here they are. Like I said, the soldering iron is too hot, the wattage is too high, so this one's supposed to slide inside here. Now I have to use a Kempton tape to do that. So what I've done, I connected these batteries. They come to these inline fuses you can use for cars or something, and I bought this from Axeman. See, Axeman, my favorite store. You can see here, and there goes the fuse. It comes with a 15 amp fuse on it, so almost exactly rated for this project and what the draw is gonna be. So all of them gonna be protected with the inline fuse. And right now, because I'm soldering, I took the fuse off. So if I have to touch this two cables terminals, nothing's gonna happen. Nothing, no arcing, nothing. See, so the fuse acts as a protector. So anytime H line is pulling more power, more than anything, I'll just replace the fuse. The BMS has a protection on it. It's going to protect itself. Then I have a double protection here with the other inline fuse. So I bought quite a few of them here. So I already did the measurement. They're all equal. I cut them. And these are, they came like this. So end up having this plug for charging. So these batteries were like that as well, but the only thing, the plug is bigger compared to this one. So what I've done, I just cut the end of these guys here. I cut it off. So this is how I end up connecting them here. And I end up having this one's going to the buses. This is going to be the bus bars. It's going to be a 5/16, and the terminal, this terminal is going to fit on that 5/16 bus bar. So the ends are already cut off from these guys here to get me to this point right here. So I have them here. Okay, and these are the ones I just cut them, trimmed them. So doing so, I have the other end, which I end up buying these guys, and I can able to insert it, this end to this end right here. There you go. It's a quick disconnect, quick connect and quick disconnect. There you are. So I can able to bring all these guys if I wanted to. If I wanted to go through that route, like instead of getting these ones going to the batteries, so I can have that end on this side here, connect those ends. What I mean, these guys, have these guys connected to the ends like this, and having the other end, which is this guy, gonna be coming from the battery side. So it's gonna be a quick disconnect on, different kind of things I want to set up, different configuration. So these ones I can able to utilize someday. and I can able to utilize the other end for quick disconnect and connect. But this guy's gonna go to the buses. All right, but they have fuses now, so it's gonna be a stable connection. Throw this guy in the box, and we're gonna use it for 12-volt system, which is a smaller inverter compared to the wires. But if I combine all these wires go to a bus, this will give me a robust connection. If I have to do all of them, all the 8 batteries in a small 16, I think it's a 18 millimeter or 18 gauge, sorry, I think it's a 18 gauge or 16 gauge wire. So 16 gauge wire, multiply them or add them or whatever, multiply them by 8 of them, you find out how much gauge you're gonna have from a 16 gauge wire. If you have 4 of them together, it becomes a robust wire now, so which we can able to draw approximately 15 to 20 amps, because four of them, 8 of them on all the neutral or negative and all in positive is more than having approximately 6 or 8 gauge wire. 6 or 8 gauge wire. Well, I cannot put a 6 or 8 gauge wire on these ones because they're too flexible and you put a lot of weight. The bigger the wire is more the weight, so it's gonna yank these batteries, the power, disconnect from the solder where they soldered them. So that's why I use flexible wires. If you look at these ones, they're all flexible. They're all flexible wires. So by doing so, I can able to. That's why I have much little bit longer length, so they can sit inside the box. They're not gonna put any pressure on these terminals at all. If I want, I can just fold them this way, and I can tape the entire module. But I don't want to tape this guy. I want to leave them exposed so that they can breathe better by being, so they can be cool instead of having the Kempton tape all over them. All right, so this will give us a proper gauge for higher capacity or high amperage drawer. Well, I'm building this guy. I don't know what to do with it right now, but I'm gonna do probably for charging phones or laptop or whatever security systems I want to use this battery for. Is a huge battery bank, so it's 19.2 per module, so we have 8 modules there, so it's approximately a 152 or 160 something amp hours if you do the math, and with a BMS on it, so we can do a 12-volt system. I can able to run this as a 24-volt system, 48 if I have to buy this once again, but currently they are not available. If they're available, I can buy more of these guys. They are not that much expensive. Then I can able to have more of these cells and wire them. Like this is a 1-volt bank, and set up another one. It's going to be 24 volts. So it's going to be 24 volts at 150 something amps instead of trying to be 200 or 300 amps. So the higher the voltage is more efficient, more than the low voltage, higher amperage. I don't want to put more stress. I think you can series these modules. I think is about 6 of them. I think it's a 6 modules you can able to series. If you want to do a series connection like this one now, it's a 12 volt. Hook it up to this 24, 36, 48. I can still able to do that at 100 and at 19.2. So the higher voltage, the higher the voltage, the lower the amperage. You're losing the amps on this thing. So I probably would have balanced it for 24 volt system for charging, because if you go 24 volts, it can even help you or save you, or you can able to add more panels on your charge controller, unless you end up having a charge controller maybe 100 amp 12 volts, or you have a 96 amp, which is a midnight classic, like that guy over there, 96 amps at 150 volts. But who wants to do that and waste a nice charge controller like that? You can do a 48 volts. You can get almost about 6 kilowatts of panels you can put at a 48 volt. So I can still use a Victron, which is uh, 10 or 20 or 30 amps or 50 amps on this one. But if I do on a 24 volts, it open up the range for me to have more panels on that 24 volts configuration. Or 12 volts, if you can only have 500 watts of solar on that one, it depends on the charge controller. If the amps are high, the charge controller is a higher thing, almost like maybe a 60 amp charge controller. Well, why would I waste a 60 amp charge controller into a small bank like this, which I can able to utilize, give me about 4 point something kilowatts on a 48 volt. So I can do this, and it's gonna be having a protection with these guys and protection on here, and other thing you use Victron for. Even the battery go all the way dead, Victron can start it, can charge it. Which other charge controllers, they have to see a 12 volt or maybe 11.9, 11.8 to power up that charge controller before able recognize it, and you can able to charge your batteries. But according to Victron, even if your battery is dead to 6 volts, which are 12 volt, it goes to 6 volts, they can able to start the charge controller, started charging your batteries. That's the good thing about Victron. So that's why I'm gonna do this. If this batteries get shorted and the BMS goes off for a while, but as soon as this ones are all parallel to each other, they can able to put some voltage by and wake up the BMS right away, and the BMS started functioning. But even the batteries are dead, I have to show. Okay, this is a good thing about the this setup I'm doing right now. This one, if it reached to the threshold, I can set the threshold for the charge controller. Like these guys here, like a Victron, I can set the threshold, like saying the cutoff gonna be at 12 volt, okay, or 12 point or 11.9 or whatever. But if I set it to 12 volts, and this BMS is set up to be at a 12.2, the BMS will cut off. The BMS will cut up at 2 or 12.2. And if I set the charge controller to cut off at 12 volts, and it's still this battery cut off at 12.2, so the charge controller is going off anyway, because they have their own parameter. I don't know what it's set up for, but I think you can go up to about 9 volts on this one. If this one goes about 9 volts discharge, I'll put that in the description below. And the charge controller set up at 12 volts. So that means I'm not going to deplete these batteries completely. But since it has a BMS on it, they have the self-discharge slowly. Likewise, the charge controller is taking a millivolts, about 10 millivolts every day, or just on a standby. It's going to be draining this battery slowly, unless I put a switch that is going to disconnect completely. It can't draw. The charge controller cannot have a piece of these guys, but this guy is going to be recycled. It's going to be self-discharged because of the PCB board here, the BMS, battery management system. It's still going to be discharged because this guy is going to be carrying charge or function, trying to balance the battery constantly. So that's what it is. But I can set the charge controller to cut off, or the inverter to cut off at 12.2. This guy is still active because it can go up to, I think, 9 volt or whatever it is. But read the specs on the description below. Okay, so I'll pull the load off from the batteries. The equipment's going to disconnect while this guy is still going to be active. If it passed the threshold all the way down, like I put a DC charger, like a USB charging port like you have in your vehicle, they can still continue while the charge controller is off, while the inverter is off, because you're charging DC to DC. As soon as you reach to the threshold, the BMS protect the batteries, the cells. It's shut off. So you can't go further. You can't deplete these batteries to zero at all, because the BMS is set. The configuration for the BMS is set to a certain threshold that is going to go off. So this is why I end up doing this for charging systems, because you're not going to go through the inverter. Okay, you're not going to go through the inverter, but I can able to take DC output from the DC load from here, from the charge controller, and I can set the cutoff on this one as well. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.